Now, it doesn't really matter if you are a homeschooler or not. You're going to enjoy this video. We took a recent trip, a field trip, to Tulsa, Oklahoma, basically just north of Tulsa, and went to the Frank Phillips Ranch, also known as OZARK. And so we went there with some homeschoolers, and my kids too, we joined in, and we had a fantastic time. And so I'm going to show you a video today of us looking around the ranch, looking around the museum. It's absolutely fantastic. If you have never heard of Frank Phillips, I also was someone who never heard of Frank Phillips, so don't feel bad. But if you don't know who Frank Phillips is, you're going to know by the end of this video. Absolutely fantastic, and it's a great field trip that anyone can take, especially if you're a homeschooler, if you're in the Tulsa area, and you have been to the Frank Phillips Ranch at OZARK. Please leave a comment below and tell us below what your favorite part of that visit was. I'd really be interested in to know. So if you don't know who Frank Phillips is, let's give you a quick introduction. I'm going to sit here and just read from Wikipedia real quick, so just stick with me here for a second. It says, Frank Phillips was born on November 28, 1873, and eventually moved to Iowa, where he had some brothers and sisters there. It says as a boy, he began his first occupational endeavor, hiring himself out to area farmers to dig potatoes for 10 cents a day. What have I said? Now, this is the early 1890s. 10 cents a day. What have I said many times over and over on this channel about 10 cents a day as being a day's wage? 2,000 years of consistency. Matthew chapter 20, verse 2. The hiring was paid a denarius for a day's wage. And right there, you've got a denarius, a 2,000-year-old denarius, and a Roosevelt silver dime right there. The same basic silver content. That's 2,000 years of history. Consistency. Consistency. 2,000 years of consistency of what is paid for a day's wage. Where are we at today? That's why I tell you, this collapse, that cake is baked, because that will correct. You have 2,000 years of consistency and basically 100 years of absolute lunacy. That cake of collapse is baked, because that cannot sustain itself. So moving on. Age 14, Phillips drops out of school and is persuaded a barber in nearby Creston, Iowa, to take him on as an apprentice. And 10 years later, Phillips owns all three barbershops in Creston. One of his barbershops was in the basement of a bank in Creston. And aside from his barbershops, he was also selling baldness cures. We saw some of that at the museum there. When he reached age 25, Phillips had already saved $75,000 from his sales. So this is 1890s, and there's a 25-year-old. He's got $75,000 in the bank. Do you understand the kind of money that is? That's absolutely... What have you done if you're age 25? I'm looking at my 17-year-old. I'm like, man, you better get going. So that's absolutely insane. So if you don't know yet, Frank Phillips is the founder of Phillips 66. He was an oil tycoon. He was an oil man. So if you ever went to a Phillips 66 gas station, that is Frank Phillips. Okay, so you look up at those oil wells all over Oklahoma. A lot of those, not all of them. I mean, there was lots of other oil tycoons back in the day. Not just Frank Phillips, but he was one of the big ones. So Phillips 66 is where that comes from. So we went to a reenactment. There was what's called a rendezvous over at the Phillips Ranch at OZARK, and it was mostly a lot of reenactors from different time periods of like around the 1870s, I think, I'm sorry, 1700s to early 1800s, I think is what it was. So there's a lot of flintlock rifles, a lot of ball and the cap rifles. Anyway, great stuff. And so here's some of the video from that. I'll go ahead and just start playing it. I'd say there were several hundred reenactors, that had showed up there. Just a fantastic. I'll pause this video so I can talk about some of the things, but tents all over and reenactors from all over, and just a fun time. Just a lot of cool things to see. A lot of some cool demonstrations. A lot of cool things for sale that some of these reenactors had their wares. Some of the things, a lot of things were handmade. Some things were just things that they were reselling. But they were resellers of different items. But a lot of people were in costume. Yeah, this was really cool. You could see a lot of the different. There was a lot of tomahawks there. A lot of things that had to deal with you know, early pioneers and Indians. This tomahawk over here is a pipe, so it's like the tomahawk, which represents war, and then the pipe, which represents peace, all being in one symbol. You saw a lot of those. But yeah, that was cool. Anyway, so lots of different things to look at and to you know, experience just kind of what that time period represented. The furs was something that we saw a lot of guns, a lot of kitchen tools, and people had fires going. They were cooking their meals out there. They're out there for about 2 weeks or so. Oh, so this is the closest I've ever been to a bison. Okay, notice there's no fence here. So that was kind of neat. I walked up. I got about as close as I was going to get to it, and it started moving away. I wasn't going to be one of those people on TV, you know, where you go up and pet it and it, you know, throws you over over yonder. But I did get pretty close, I think, about as close as I was going to get. There was no fence between us. And so most of the bison they had on the ranch were actually corralled in different corrals. But that one was the oddball. He was just walking around. So yeah, this is cool. This is a cool table. I got to meet Nathan Butcher. He was the guy from season 9, I believe, of Forged in Fire. If you ever watched that on the History Channel, I think it was History Channel. But some of his stuff was on here, so that was kind of cool. He's the guy I think who lost a finger in an accident in the shop. But yeah, a lot of stuff for sale. Correct period clothing for sale, knickknacks, buttons, beads, you name it. It was all there. Just a huge amount of space and room, acres covered by these tents where people were selling all of their wares. Some of these bison, some of these furs were amazing. Look at this. Look at these furs. Absolutely amazing. But they were very pricey. Some of them were very expensive. These bison furs were about between $700 and $800 a piece. I was like, oh man, I would love to get me a bison fur, a bison pelt. Yeah, $700 or $800 a piece. I'll pass, but there's a lot of other things I could buy for $700 or $800, but they were pretty nice, and these would definitely keep you warm. I mean, you could see why they were so well sought after. So this is the entrance of the museum. When you walk in, there's a number of people on display here, and it's just a really neat entrance. The museum as a whole was probably one of the neatest museums I've ever been to. A lot of cool things to look at, a lot of cool history pieces. We'll go through some of them. But way more than I could ever talk about here in this video, you know, and be able to keep your attention with it. But, yeah, it's a lot of great displays, talking about Indian history, the Trail of Tears and all that entailed, and some of the, I don't know, some of the different religious practices of some of the Indians or Native Americans, if I want to be politically correct. I just call them Indians because that's what everyone called them. Yeah. A lot of interesting things to read about. This was something I thought was absolutely fascinating. All of the different types of barbed wire. Do you know how many different types of barbed wire there's been throughout history? Well, there was a display of all the different types of barbed wire that, you know, throughout history that people have used to keep in their cattle. And obviously, this is, you know, this is kind of like cattle country out here. So, yeah, lots of different types of barbed wire, and they're all labeled with the different types of strands and the different makeups of those strands. Look at that. They're all labeled. Patented. These are all patented barbed wire. You never knew there was that many patents for barbed wire, but there are. Absolute insanity. But, you know, maybe some work better than others, or maybe they all work the same. I don't know, but I just never expected to see that many patents for barbed wire. Now, this was one of the most amazing displays that I saw there at the museum. I mean, let me just read this to you here for a second. So it says, this Colt 1873 single-action army was used by outlaw George Kimes in the 1920s, during which time it acquired the initials of GK for George Kimes and had 6 notches on the handle. From there, it came into the possession of the family of donor G.O. Sears Jr. Finding himself in need of a handgun at Guadalcanal, Sears sent a letter to his father asking if he could find him a gun. The family produced this Colt 45, and it sent it to him. Sears carried the gun while serving with the United States Marines in the Pacific Theater during World War II. It was fired in combat at Guadalcanal Guam, Bougainville, and Iwo Jima. Absolutely amazing piece of history. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the pistol. It's like it belonged to a bank robber in the 1920s. And then it went overseas to the Pacific, Guadalcanal, Guam, Bougainville, and Iwo Jima. That's absolutely, I just found that absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. That it went through that's, I mean, most guns will never see that much action and have that much of a history to it. Imagine what that pistol has seen. Absolutely crazy things. Crazy, crazy things. It has the basically the largest Colt firearms collection I have ever seen anywhere on Earth. These are all mostly Colt firearms, guys. What a collection. And some of the pieces like this one here, this is, I believe, water-cooled 50. I'm not sure what kind of 50 it was, but it's basically a Gatling gun. These are some more Colts. And this was interesting. This was a Colt Browning water-cooled. So it's a Browning, machine gun that was taken by Colt and then turned into a water-cooled Browning 50 cal. So I've never seen one of those before. And from what I understand, they're very, very rare. And one of the few ones that exist is at this museum. So that's a giant anaconda skin right there, and this airplane that used to be in service at the company, the Phillips 66 company, Conoco Phillips. And then there's one of their patented designs for their oil drill. Oh, and this is something that I wanted to show. This was a picture of some of the homeschool. I cut the picture. I cut the homeschoolers out of the picture, but this was on display at the museum as well. And these are a bunch of shrunken heads that were brought back, I think, by Frank Phillips to the museum. I forgot where he found these in Ecuador. It looks like on the map there. But I didn't read the whole story because we were moving too fast. There were so many things to see. But the kids got a real kick out of the shrunken heads. These are actual shrunken heads at the museum. Anyway, so that's it. That is the museum. It was an absolute fascinating field trip. If you are near Tulsa and you are a homeschool family, this would be a great place to take your kids. There are lots of animals on the ranch. The bison are there. There's elk there. There's ostrich, emu, whatever you want to call them. I think there's a difference between the two, but I don't know what that is. Anyway, they had some of those there, different deer, all kinds of wildlife, and like I said, just lots to see. And if you go during the time when they have these rendezvous, and I think they have them twice a year, I think. I'm not sure about that, but they have a lot of all the reenactors there and a lot of fun stuff to see. So be a great homeschool field trip if you can make it to one of these things. I think you'll enjoy it. Your kids will definitely enjoy it. My kids definitely enjoyed it, and they had a great time. So if you've been there, leave a comment below. What was your favorite part about your trip? What was your favorite thing that you saw? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear that too. So, all right, happy to share all that with you. Let me know what you think. All right, guys. See you next time in the Homestead. Bye. Have you ever gone to a health food store and seen all those small bottles of probiotics in your cooler section? Man, can they be pricey. Are you really getting all you need to improve your gut health from those expensive bottles? How viable are they? Most of those products claim to give you between 8 and 15 strains of gut-healthy healing bacteria. Think of each strain of bacteria as a different factory in your gut. Each factory is responsible for breaking down that food in its own way. The more factories you have, the more the food is broken down and the easier the food is absorbed and digested by the body. A 2018 study published by the National Library of Medicine shows that one fermented head of cabbage can produce up to 114 strains of beneficial bacteria. That's a lot more food factories than you're getting from that expensive pill bottle. And that's just cabbage. Imagine the probiotics when you add garlic, onions, pepper, and more to that ferment. PerfectPickler.com and its home fermentation kits provide you with everything you need to get started making your own gut-healthy food factories from the comfort of your own kitchen. PerfectPickler.com even provides a jam-packed recipe book with many of our kits. Visit PerfectPickler.com and start fermenting your own veggies to begin your journey to better gut health. That's PerfectPickler.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the Homestead that we make here on the Homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.